are coming today. Those of you that are here in person and those who are participating remotely. I'm so glad that you're here. We don't have a screen working for us today, which is fine, but it means I'm going to spell a couple things out for you at the beginning. And this is especially for those participating remotely, but not necessarily only for them. If you need access to a Bible, because we're going to be looking at the Bible today, and if you don't have one in front of you and you want to look at one, you can always go to commonenglishbible.com. Common, like common, not uncommon, commonenglishbible.com. And there's a little field there where you can put in a Bible text and read it. I think it's limited to one chapter at a time. So, for example, Song 1. Song 1 will give you Song of Songs, chapter 1. And you can read right along during the times that I'm going to be reading, which I will be from time to time. So that's a great way to have a Bible in front of you if you can't put your hand to one at the moment. For the folks that are participating remotely, I want you, from time to time, I'm going to be, giving folks an opportunity to ask questions. And for folks participating remotely, I don't want you to be left out. And so what you can do if you choose is to email me your questions from time to time. And the way you can do that is at an email address that I've set up for that purpose. And it's questions at anuma.com. And I'll spell it. A, N as in Nancy, U, M as in Mary, M as in Mary, A, anuma.com. So if anybody participating remotely wants to toss a question into the mix, that's how you can do it. Just email me at questions@anuma.com. Only during this hour. I won't be answering your questions all week long. I got to go back to work just like everybody else. But every week when we're here during this time, I'll be happy to take your questions from time to time. So I'll keep looking at that email address in case it comes up. Warning. No, not good morning. Warning. Warning. Song of Songs contains adult content. My lover is a sachet of myrrh to me. He sleeps all night between my breasts. So if that's not your kind of thing, please look forward to other adult-led offerings coming from First Presbyterian Church Deerfield over the course of this season. But before you decide that Song of Songs is not for you on account of its adult content, remember that adult content is maybe one of the very few things that Song of Songs shares with the whole rest of the Bible. The whole rest of the Bible. Name a Bible story. You don't have to raise your hand. You can just shout out a Bible story if you like. You've read the Bible. I know you're familiar with what. Anyone remember a Bible story? Ruth, adult content. Adult content. The threshing. If you don't know about the threshing floor, go look on your own time at Ruth chapter 3. Adult content. Any other Bible stories you can think of? Which Tamar? Yes, the one that sleeps in her father-in-law, that is adult content. And the other Tamar story is also adult content. Incest and sexual violence. Yeah. John the Baptist, adult content. Beheading. Gruesome beheading. Gruesome beheading. Also, the way he talks to people is not nice. It's adult content. You get the idea. And I noticed you all knew to steer away from, Noah's Ark, Adam and Eve, adult content. So the Bible is for grown-ups. So Song of Songs in that respect is not markedly different from the rest of the Bible in terms of having adult content. At that point, I sometimes feel like that's almost where the similarities between Song of Songs and the rest of the Bible begins to disappear. It's written in Hebrew, like most of the Hebrew Bible, and it's poetry, so it's a lot like Psalms and some others. But the Song of Songs really is its own thing, as we'll see. And you're going to learn something of that today, because in this 6-week session, our agenda for today in this first week is really just to see what's in there. What's in it? What's in the Song of Songs? And see what questions that content generates for us. That is, when we start to get a better idea of what the Song of Songs is and what's in it, we can begin to ask some questions. I'll give you one for nothing because it's one that everyone asks. What in the world is this doing in the Bible? What is this doing in the Bible? And this is a question that has been asked and answered for thousands of years, And we will also have our opportunities to ask it and maybe to answer it, to offer our own answers. The Song of Songs, which is for Solomon. If only he would give me some of his kisses. Oh, your loving is sweeter than wine. Your fragrance is sweet. Your very name is perfume. That's why the young women love you. Take me along with you. Let's run. My king has brought me into his chambers, saying, let's exult and rejoice in you. Let's savor your loving more than wine. No wonder they all love you. Dark am I and lovely, daughters of Jerusalem, like the black tents of the Kedar nomads, like the curtains of Solomon's palace. Don't stare at me because I'm darkened by the sun's gaze. My own brothers were angry with me. They made me a caretaker of their vineyards, but my own vineyard I have not kept. Tell me, you whom I love with all my heart, where do you pasture your flock? Where do you rest them at noon, so that I don't wander around with the flocks of your companions? Well, if you don't know your way, most beautiful of women, then follow the tracks of the herds and graze your little goats by the tents of the shepherds. I picture you, my dearest, as a mare among Pharaoh's chariots. Lovely are your cheeks, adorned with ear hoops, your neck with beads. Let's make hoops of gold beaded with silver for you. With my king close by, my perfume filled the air. A sachet of myrrh is my love to me, lying all night between my breasts. A cluster of henna flowers is my love to me in the desert gardens of En Gedi. Look at you, so beautiful, my dearest. Look at you, so beautiful. Your eyes are doves. Look at you, so beautiful, my love. Yes, delightful. Yes, our bed is lush and green. The ceilings of our chambers are cedars, our rafters, cypresses. I'm belting it out to the cheap seats as best I can. I hope folks are able to hear me. It's difficult with a mask, and if from time to time you're not sure what I've said, it is within the etiquette, right, to raise your hand. Yeah, I didn't get that. I didn't quite get that. So please, I hope you'll let me know. What was that? Start over. Warning! No, I'm just kidding. Did you know the Song of Songs is in the early church? The Song of Songs was preached more than almost any other song, more than almost any other book. Book of Isaiah, I think, usually has the lead in terms of content, Book of Psalms, but Song of Songs is way up there in terms of preaching and teaching content in the early church. Can you imagine? Have you heard the Song of Songs? How often have you heard the Song of Songs in church? First time? Yeah, probably the first time. Any questions that you're starting to have about the Song of Songs? I'm going to keep asking, and they don't have to be about what I just read, right? It doesn't have to be about something like I just read chapter 1 of the Song of Songs. It doesn't have to be about chapter 1 of the Song of Songs, but any questions that are coming to mind for you. Sometimes these are questions that have like clear answers, even whether we know them or not. When was it written? Who wrote it? What is this? Sometimes it's questions that are more sort of open-ended, like what in the world is this doing in the Bible? What should we be doing this with? So what kind of questions? Yes, here's one. Yeah. What did they use it for? Yeah. I'm hoping, I said that our agenda for today is just to get to know the Song of Songs, and that's what we'll be doing. I have ideas about what to do with the remaining 5 weeks, and one of them is a week more or less on this topic, or part of a week more or less on this topic. Some of you might have heard this before. The Song of Songs, one of the ways people have understood it is as an allegory, right? To write about one thing in terms of something else, an allegory of the love between Christ and the church, right? So the mystics and many other, I see your face. Oh, I got to think about that. I got to, right? An allegory of the union between Christ and the church. The church is often called the bride of Christ. The bride of Christ. So in that view, one can read the song or parts of the song as a reflection on the love between Christ and the church as romantic love. As romantic love. So that's a big one. That's a big one from the early church. Yeah. Yes. Conveyed by a woman, yes, and yes, great. So, in the Song of Songs, you have 3 voices, arguably. Actually, well, okay, I'll get to that later. But a dominant voice, the dominant voice in the Song of Songs, is the voice of a woman, and specifically, apparently, of a young woman or a young girl, right? A what we would call it maybe a tween today, a girl who is approaching marriageable age, right? And is not yet married, and is not yet married. Someone wrote, not me, a scholar, not me, wrote concerning love literature in the ancient world, which is similar to the Song of Songs, right? There's, and that could be another week. In Egypt, in Mesopotamia, among Israel's neighbors, there's a rich body of literature of which we have a good chunk to be able to read, which is in many ways similar to the Song of Songs. Remember, I said the rest of the Bible is not like the Song of Songs, but that doesn't mean nothing is like the Song of Songs. There is literature from those times around those parts that is similar, and a scholar wrote about that material that it's striking. It's striking that the love literature of the ancient Near East, which I don't know if anybody has told you, is an intensely patriarchal culture, right? It is not a culture in which women, and especially girls, enjoy a great deal of autonomy or in many ways consideration. But the love literature of the ancient Near East, the scholar writes, in this literature, it is striking the degree to which this literature centers the rights of a young girl to romantic satisfaction. The rights of a young girl to romantic satisfaction. This is a culture of arranged marriages, folks. What is this literature doing? What is it doing? Not only the fact that it existed, but it has been preserved and copied and passed along by elite male scribes, generation after generation. Why? Why is it important to them? Yes, fascinating. Song of Solomon, chapter 2. I am a rose of the Sharon plain, a lily of the valleys. Like a lily among thorn bushes, so is my dearest among the young women. Like an apple tree among the wild trees, so is my lover among the young men. In his shade I take pleasure in sitting, and his fruit is sweet to my taste. He has brought me to the house of wine. His banner raised over me is love. Sustain me with raisin cakes, strengthen me with apples, for I am weak with love. His left arm is beneath my head, his right embraces me. Make a solemn pledge, daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or the wild deer. Don't arouse love until it desires. Listen, it's my lover. Here he comes now, leaping upon the mountains, bounding over the hills. My lover is like a gazelle or a young stag. Here he stands now outside our wall, peering through the windows, peeking through the lattice. My lover spoke and said to me, "Rise up, my dearest, my fairest, and go. Here the winter is past, the rains have come and gone, blossoms have appeared in the land, the season of singing has arrived, and the sound of the turtle dove is heard in our land. The green fruit is on the fig tree, and the grapevines in bloom are fragrant. Rise up, my dearest, my fairest, and go. My dove in the rock crevices, hidden in the cliff face. Let me catch sight of you. Let me hear your voice. The sound of your voice is sweet, and the sight of you is lovely. Catch foxes for us, those little foxes that spoil vineyards now that our vineyards are in bloom. I belong to my lover, and he belongs to me, the one grazing among the lilies. Before the day breeze blows and the shadows flee, turn about, my love, be like a gazelle or a young stag upon the jagged mountains. I was once reliably informed that I am like a stag and like a gazelle upon the mountains. It was on my wedding day. It was among the texts that were read on my wedding day. Let my love come. You are a young stag. You are a gazelle upon the mountains. It's the last time that comparison has been made, as far as I know. You know, and it wasn't just the early church, and the early church wasn't even the first to consider this allegory between God and for the rabbis, it was it could be read as an allegory depicting the love between God, the God of Israel, and the people Israel. Between the God of Israel and the people Israel, and it was often, in fact, many of the readings of the Song of Songs are it's the things like what we just read are said to evoke the love between the God of Israel and the people Israel in the Exodus, in particular, right? God's saving act of delivering the people from Egypt, and also the giving of the law on Mount Sinai, right? There's a tendency in Protestant circles, this is partly Paul's fault and partly our fault for reading Paul in a certain way, and it's partly Luther's fault and partly our fault. Well, no, it's really Luther's fault. But to think of the law in Judaism as a burden, right? This crushing weight on the people Israel. You know, they have to, obey all these laws all the time. But overwhelmingly in the writings of the rabbis, the law is a gift, which is sweet like honey. And in fact, Psalm 119, an extended meditation on taking delight in the law, describes the law as sweet to the taste, sweet like honey. So that allegory also exists in terms of the how to understand the love, the romantic love that we find in the Song of Songs. Rabbi Akiva famously said, "The whole world is not worth the day on which the Song of Songs was given to the people Israel." The whole world is not worth the day on which the Song of Songs was given by God to the people Israel. Akiva also also said that that allegory between God and Israel is the only correct way to read the Song of Songs. And above all, what you must not do is go about in the bars and taverns, twittering the verses of the song to your lover, right? Or in songs about your lover, as if it were about human romantic love. As if it were about human. That's the rabbi's opinion. We'll take that under due consideration. Other questions? Questions about the Song of Songs? Anything that comes to mind? Yeah. No, don't be sorry. Yes, in many ways. Yeah. Between God and Israel, yeah. Uh-huh. Ah. Excellent question. So if the Song of Songs is similar to, as I've said, to other literature that we have from the ancient Near East, but Israel, as far as we know, is as the question goes, the only monotheistic, right? Then how would this dynamic of love between the God of the people and the people play out? Great question. Can we make this a 12-week session? 6 weeks, I'm already seeing 6 weeks isn't going to do it. Monotheism, monotheism comes to Israel, just this is more of an aside, but monotheism comes later to the people Israel than one might think, and a little bit more than the Bible kind of wants you to think. So polytheism is very normal among the people Israel until a pretty late stage in things. But to your point, in the love literature of the surrounding nations, there's no sense that this is there's no sense that it's an allegory, that these songs of romantic love are an allegory between the God and the people, like between Chemosh and the Moabites, for example, or Ptah and the Egyptians, or something like this. And then the question becomes, when did that become the idea for the Song of Songs? That is, when the Song of Songs was put to paper by people, were they already thinking of it as such an allegory, or were they collecting this stuff and weaving it together and writing it for other reasons, and only later are people thinking of it as an allegory? This is a question hotly debated today in the Song of Songs. Did the Song of Songs get into the Bible and then it was allegorized in order to make sense of what in the world is this thing doing in the Bible? Or was Song of Songs allegorized in terms of God and the people of Israel, or Jesus and the church, and therefore became a part of the Bible, and as a result of that became a part of the Bible? Take your pick. There's good arguments on both sides, but what they will agree on is that when this stuff was being spoken from one person to another, when it was being sung, when it was being collected in pieces and put together, that at that time, these were songs of human romantic love. Human romantic love. Yeah. I'm going to repeat for the folks. I know the folks that are remote can be a little shy, but in case we had any later joiners, you can send, during these sessions, you can send me email. You can email me a question at the address questions at anuma.com. A-N as in Nancy, U, M as in Mary, M as in Mary, A-N-U-M-M-A.com. Questions at anuma.com. Song of Songs, chapter 3. Upon my bed, night after night, I looked for the one whom I love with all my heart. I looked for him, but I could not find him. I will rise now and go all around the city, through the streets and the squares. I will look for the one whom I love with all my heart. I looked for him, but I could not find him. The guards found me, those who make their rounds in the city. The one whom I love with all my heart, have you seen him? No sooner did I depart from them than I found the one whom I love with all my heart. I held on to him, and now I won't let him go until I've brought him to my mother's house, to the chamber of the one who conceived me. I place you under oath, daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or the wild deer. Don't arouse love until it desires. Who is this? Coming up from the wilderness like pillars of smoke. She is perfumed with myrrh and frankincense, selected from all the spice merchants' powders. Picture Solomon's bed. 60 heroic men round about it, all from the heroes of Israel, all of them skilled with the sword, expert in warfare, each with his sword ready at his thigh against the terrors that come by night. King Solomon made a canopied couch for himself from the trees of Lebanon. Its pillars he made with silver, its coverings cloth of gold, its cushions royal purple, its interior inlaid with love. daughters of Jerusalem, go forth. Look, daughters of Zion, on King Solomon wearing the crown with which his mother crowned him on the day of his wedding, on the day of his heart's joy. Got any questions now? Oh it sounds like a young woman's diary. It sounds like a young woman's diary, which makes you think it must be allegorized later because it's starting to feel, right, like a young woman's diary. Mm-hmm. And it just switches like a diary, right? It's one thing and then it's another, then it's another, then it's another. Further questions? Yes. Hmm. Hmm. Oh boy. So the question I'm going to echo briefly in my own words is the allegorization of the Song of Songs. Is what has been done to mysticize something that is earthy, or to allegorize something that is earthy, because we have our own ideas. We being everybody who's read the Song of Songs, not just us, including the folks who first allegorized it. I guess I would say, because there are things in Scripture that are uncomfortable to us in their earthiness, perhaps in their mundaneness, right? And we want to spiritualize them. A part of this is that thing, and this is look, what happens when we start reading the Bible and reflecting on the contents and talking with one another about it and reading what other people have said, which is just more conversation, we start learning more about the Bible and we start learning more about ourselves. And one of the things we keep learning about the Bible, in my experience teaching the Hebrew Bible, is the Bible is not what we thought it was. A friend of mine, Professor David Garber, he likes to say to his students, the Bible is not a Bible. What does he mean by that? If you go to the store like Barnes and Noble or whatever, you'll find like the bike repair Bible, right? The bird watching Bible, you know? And what does that mean? What is a Bible in this view? Well, a Bible is a place where you go and you find all the information you need on a topic, and it's really focused, you know, on the thing that it's about. And then we go to the actual Bible, and it's authoritative, and it has one voice, right? This Bible of bike repair or whatever. And then you go to the actual Bible, and it's not like that at all. But it's the Bible. So we want it to be what we've been told it is. You know, tragically, this happens between people, not just between us and the Bible, doesn't it? Right? How often do two people meet, maybe of different cultures, different races, different genders, right? And one of them may have a fixed idea of who and what the other person is because of their class, because of their gender, because of their race. And they can't get a handle on who the person actually is because of these fixed ideas that are standing in their way. And do we do that sometimes with the Bible and with other things, with other voices, right? And so we say, well, this Bible isn't acting very much like a Bible. Abraham will do some nonsense like pass his wife off as his sister entering Egypt and get in all kinds of trouble for it and get kicked out. And we're like, well, what does this have to do with God? What does this have to do with God? What's the spiritual meaning, right? Jacob gets away with all kinds of nonsense. Jacob does terrible things and is rewarded over and over and over again. Esau does perfectly normal things over and over again and just gets destroyed. Well, that doesn't sound like the Bible. The Bible's going to tell us to like be good and we'll be rewarded and bad people will be punished. And over in the Bible, that doesn't happen. So we have to fix it. We have to fix it. We have to make Jacob sound really good. We have to make Esau into a hairy monster. All kinds of things we do to fix the Bible, And so allegoring is that one, right? Where, you know, we're looking at this romantic, earthy literature full of lips and kisses and breasts and botanical, like flowers and gazelles and arguably double entendre, and say, well, this has to be elevated somehow. because we're uncomfortable with feeling that the mundane, perhaps even the profane, if it depends on I mean that word, the earthy is holy, that it can be holy, that it can be sanctified, that maybe it is already sanctified, that it is a part of God's good creation, right? So many readings of the Adam and Eve story, right, would sort of suggest, I don't know if you know this, but even though there's no sex in the Adam and Eve story, it's often suggested that like basically Adam and Eve sort of discover sex and that gets them kicked out of their sexuality, their nakedness, right, and are therefore kicked out of paradise, right? That's not part of God's plan. Well, the story of Adam and Eve actually doesn't say that, but that reading is one that says something about us, right? We start to learn about the things that we are comfortable with and not comfortable with, and maybe ask ourselves why. Maybe ask ourselves why. Song of Songs, chapter 4. Look at you, so beautiful, my dearest. Look at you, so beautiful. Your eyes are doves behind the veil of your hair. Your hair is like a flock of goats as they stream down Mount Gilead. Your teeth are like newly shorn ewes as they come up from the washing pool, all of them perfectly matched. Not a one of them lacks its twin. Like a crimson ribbon are your lips. When you smile, it is lovely. Like a slice of pomegranate is the curve of your face behind the veil of your hair. Like David's tower is your neck, splendidly built. 1,000 shields are hung upon it, all the weapons of warriors. Your two breasts are like twin fawns, twins of a gazelle doe that graze among the lilies. Before the day breeze blows and the shadows flee, I will be off to the mountains of myrrh, to the hill of frankincense. You are utterly beautiful, my dearest. There is not a single flaw in you. Come down with me from Lebanon, my bride. If only you would come down with me from Lebanon. Descend from the peak of Amana, from the peaks of Senir and Hermon, from the lion's dens, from the mountain lairs of leopards. You have captured my heart, my sister, my bride. You have captured my heart with one glance from your eyes, with one strand of your necklace. How beautiful is your loving, my sister, my bride. Your loving is so much better than wine, and your fragrance better than any perfume. Sweetness drops from your lips, my bride. Honey and milk are under your tongue, and the fragrance of your garments is like the fragrance of Lebanon. An enclosed garden is my sister, my bride, an enclosed pool, a sealed spring. Your limbs are an orchard of pomegranates with all kinds of luscious fruit, henna and spices, nard and saffron, sweet cane and cinnamon, with all scented woods, myrrhs and aloes, with the very choicest perfumes. You are a garden spring, a well of fresh water, streams from Lebanon. Stir, north wind, and come, south wind. Blow upon my garden. Let its perfumes flow. Let my love come to his garden. Let him eat its luscious fruit. I have come to my garden, my sister, my bride. I have gathered my myrrh and my spices. I have eaten my honeycomb with my honey. I have drunk my wine and my milk. Eat, dear friends, drink, and get drunk on love. Anybody have any questions now? Any questions come to mind? I don't know. Now? You know they do. Don't even tell me that you don't have questions. All right, we won't talk about the sister. That's fine. That's fine. Moving on. Oh, come on, my sister, my bride. Questions about this? Go ahead and think about what your questions are and ask them. Something, we'll go beyond what the heck. Like, okay, so what the heck is our actual question? What's your question? Yeah. Do I want to expound? Nicely volleyed back. Little tennis. Do you want to expound upon the sister bit? No. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Actually, I really do. Um, so this is one of these things that we do see in other romantic literature from the ancient world, and specifically in the Egyptian romantic literature. And exactly as that. My sister, my bride, my sister. Come with me, my sister. It was sometimes the idea was put out there at first that this was royal literature. You know how it is with royal families. You know how it is with royal families, where marriage allegedly, or the idea is that marriage between siblings happens in royal families for reasons, and that this may be royal literature. That idea did not last long at all. It didn't stand the test of time in terms of the literature itself and its apparent context, and also in terms of what was going on in Egyptian royal families. Just a metaphor. It's just a metaphor. Why would my sister, and we're going to hear my brother also, why would sister and brother be terms of endearment in a culture between romantic partners? Why might that be? We're a little skeeved out by the metaphor. Let's just say it, right? We're upset by the connotations of incest. And for us, our discomfort with those connotations of incest sort of poison the well, don't they? They make it hard for us to imagine what the positive connotations of the sibling relationship might be that might want to be carried over into one's ideas of the relationship one has with one's romantic partner. Put simply, what are some of the good things about a sibling relationship, at least potentially, that one would seek and treasure in a romantic partnership? Yeah. They're very family oriented. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Your nuclear family is who you live with. Your slightly extended family is part of your household. Your further extended family is part of your compound or your clan. Your further extended family is your tribe, right? Very family oriented and family focused. And in an agricultural society, there's both urban and agricultural living in ancient Israel, but in the agricultural world, your siblings might be most of your social circle for much of your youth, right? So all of those intimacies, trust building moments, betrayals, tragically, alienation, all those dramas that for me played out in the home, but largely played out in school or in the neighborhood, are playing out among siblings, certainly. Ideally, brothers and sisters are close, and brothers protect sisters, especially older brothers. Yeah, the closeness of the relationship, the intimacy. We're going to see, we won't be reading the whole Song of Songs this morning, sadly, although we could, we're more than halfway through at this point. There's only 8 chapters in the Song of Songs. If you read it out loud, it takes about 25 minutes. That's one of the great things about doing an adult education series on the Song of Songs. You're doing something like the book of Isaiah or even like the Gospel of John or whatever. You can never get to it all. But the Song of Songs is brief enough, and then you might think, well, what are we going to do with 6 weeks? Yeah, don't worry. I got a 13-week session going on at Garrett Evangelical right now on the Song of Songs. We had our first week this last week. Our second session is in a couple of days. We're going to scratch the surface of this thing, in there. So believe me, we got time. But where was I going with this? So we're going to be able. This is poetry. Do you notice that it's poetry? We're going to be able to drill down on the poetry. What I was going to, since we're not going to read the whole thing, in chapter 8, there's just this really nice thing on the sibling thing. The woman says, "If only you were as my brother, the one who nursed at my mother's breast. I would find you in the street and kiss you, and no one would shame me for it. I would lead you. I would bring you to my mother's house. She would teach me what to do. I would give you spiced wine to drink, some of my fresh pomegranate juice. Romantic literature among the yet unmarried, the yet unbetrothed, right? If only you were as my brother. I could kiss you in the public. I could kiss you in public. I can kiss my brother in public and nobody cares. If I kiss you in public, people are going to talk. But I want to kiss you in public. I want to kiss you in public. So the brother-sister thing comes up more than once in different ways. You hear the mother, right? Do you hear the repeated refrain about the mother? She is described as the one who is precious to her mother. She dreams of leading him to her mother's house, right? More family, right? More of these family relationships and family dynamics that are presupposed in this romantic literature. I know we're just about at time. We're going to have to brush you folks, get you folks off to your next thing in about 3 minutes. Just checking the email one more time. All right, nothing from the remote folks. Boy, I hope this is on, don't you? I'm sure they're fine. We'll hear more from them next week. What I have in mind for the remaining weeks is to sort of do two things at once. And I'm open to revising this and modifying it based on your interests and your requests. But essentially, because it is short and because we can drill down on the poetry, and like all poetry, it rewards close reading. It rewards close reading. The little repetitions, some of the sound play that might be going on in the Hebrew that I can let you hear, things like this. Really drilling down on famous select. I am black and I am beautiful. You can't tell me that's not a week right there. I am black and I am beautiful. Concepts of race in the ancient Near East, concepts of beauty and how those concepts of beauty are overturned. Anybody ever see Shrek? Right? It's a Beauty and the Beast story, turned, right? Ideas of what is beauty and what makes a person beautiful turned on their head in the book of Shrek, and doing it in a way that plays on favorite tropes, favorite fairy tale tropes and ideas, the Beauty and the Beast. Similarly, I am black and I am beautiful, right? In the Song of Songs, taking and turning cultural ideas about what makes a person beautiful, as in our culture, right? Anyway, so but what I have in mind is that we will spend part of each week drilling down on a particular part of the Song of Songs and seeing what gems are there, but also looking at one of these big picture questions: allegorization in the church, Christ in the church, allegorization among the rabbis, God of Israel and the people Israel. I am black and I am beautiful, ideas of beauty taken and turned, then and now. These other cultures, what does this other literature look like? It's not all the same, and it's not all just like the Song of Songs. So how is it similar, and how is it different? Does that sound good? That's like a good way to spend a few weeks. Great. Read the Song of Songs. Take a look at it this week. We got halfway through it. Read the rest if you can. It's not homework. You don't have to do it, but I think you'd be crazy not to. It's just so good. It's 9:20. I want to thank all of you for having me here during these weeks, and for those of you who have turned out in person, and for those of you that are joining us, participating with us remotely. Thank you for taking this time on your Sunday morning. I look forward to next time. All right. Mm-hmm. Your interpretation. Yeah. Sounds earthy. Yeah. Is there also an allegorical interpretation for the brother-sister part, or for the sister-sister part? And for the yeah. I'm gonna have to ask my son about that. I raised an only child, and he's 20 now, and I wonder how he'll think about that. When we think about, we all share. I'm not sure if this is answering. We all share cultural ideas of what siblings are and what siblings are supposed to be to one another. It's not very common in the vernacular now, but to call someone, "Hey, brother," or, oh, I hear you, sister. So we've got these ideas where we take the idea of brother, sister, and we already extend them outside of the family. And I think even, like, and for folks who don't have biological brothers and sisters, or weren't raised, I shouldn't say biological, for folks who were not raised with siblings, but you're part of the culture and you participate in our sort of discourse about what siblingness means, right? And so it's available in that respect. Does that answer, or am I off to one side of the question?
Well, I guess I was looking for something more exotic, wondering whether it has any implications for an intercurrent society for lesbianism, perhaps.
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially like yeah, there's great. This might be a week. This might be a week. Um, uh, there are a lot of LGBTQIA plus readings of the Song of Songs, and one of the things that they're trying to work with is the heteronormative assumptions that are in the Song of Songs. It assumes like that. Certainly for this romantic partnership, it's between a young man and a young woman. It is about the metaphor is brother and sister. It does not conceive of a female-female romantic bond or a male-male romantic bond. But queer readers and those who seek to produce queer readings have produced queer readings of the Song of Songs. Part of how this is possible, there's more than one way. You can do anything you want, but is that, the song never tells you who's speaking directly. It doesn't have little stage directions that say, this is the man, this is the woman, this is the daughters of Jerusalem. Often and in the Hebrew language, you can tell who is being addressed by the gender of the pronouns and verbs. You singular, masculine, you feminine, plural, you whoever, but you can't tell who's speaking. I is gender neutral. So in any Hebrew speech where someone says, I love you, or I am caught in the tresses of your hair, or I wish to come to your enclosed garden, we know who's being spoken to most of the time as being depicted as either male or female, but we don't know who's speaking. And that is one wide open place to be able to generate queer readings of the Song of Songs. That's done all the time. And that's not the only way that's done. So when it is said, my brother, there's no reason that can't be a male voice speaking to my brother, or my sister, a female voice speaking to my sister. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We won't be here next week because we have to leave, but we're going to be online.
Wonderful, wonderful. Good.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Those are great questions. I appreciate it.
Yeah, our audience has some same-sex relationships.
Yeah.
So I thought
I'll make sure that comes up next week, since it's among the issues that I brought up, like the rabbis and I am black and beautiful. I didn't think to raise that one today, and I should have. So I'm going to make. Well, but I try to think of everything.
Understand the politics too.
Oh, I don't care about the politics. We're going to bring it up. Like, that's definitely what we're going to do. That's going to happen. And so thank you for that. And I'm going to make sure that happens close to the beginning of next week.
All right.
Okay.
Have a great week.
Thank
You do too. Bye.
Bye.